How we doing, everybody, and welcome to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. It is Thursday. It's a great Thursday in the great state of Wisconsin. Little chilly, a little bit chilly out there. That wind over the past, I would say, almost week now has just been ridiculous, and they're talking snow, rain, ice, just about we got lucky for a while. We got lucky for a while. The weather was nice. Everything was shaping up well. And now it's like Mother Nature said, you guys missed out on it for 2 months. I'm going to give you all of it in a matter of a couple days. Because this next weekend's looking like it's going to be an ice storm, but that's okay. That's okay because you know what? You can stay inside. You can watch March Madness, and it's going to be fantastic. That's all I know. Lots of good basketball coming up this weekend here. We've had lots of good basketball over the week, or so far this week here. So lots of good things happening. I want to talk about last night first, though, the Bucks-Celtics game. No Giannis. So it was already setting up to be one of those deals, right? One of those games, missing Giannis. Don't know what's going to happen here. Dame's going to have a good game. Middleton's going to have to play well. And, well, the Bucks did lose 122-119. Played well. Not great. Played well in that fourth quarter. They scored 36 points in the fourth. They got outscored there in the third. Other than that, basically this whole game got outscored by the Celtics quarter by quarter. That's where you can add it up to there. And the Bucks made up their ground in the fourth. Weren't able to make the full comeback there. Not sure what was going on with Brook Lopez in that game. Only 21 minutes. Didn't see him until late. He was out for a while in that game, and I don't know what was going on with Brook. But once Brook Lopez was taken out of that game, Bucks kind of went into a 2-3 zone, which was interesting. You get it. Celtics were they're a bad matchup for the Bucks. Gotta be honest with you. Giannis didn't have that ability really to go man-to-man with this team. So they go with more of a zone look. Pulled Brook Lopez out, and the Celtics were able to get to the rim. A lot of times Jason Tatum getting to the rim there, Porzingis, whoever it was. And the Bucks couldn't slow down some of the key guys for the Celtics team, and that ultimately led to the loss. Looking at the box score here for the Bucks, 22 points out of Middleton. We had 32 points out of Dame in this one, and Bobby Portis with 24 points in this game. Patrick Beverley had 9, Crowder had 7, 8 for Lopez, 6 for Beasley in this one, and then 7 for Pat Connaughton in this game. So Bucks, it's not like they played bad. I'm not going to say they played bad. They just had lapses, and, the Celtics just showed them, without Giannis, you guys are not up to par with us. And the Celtics jumped out, got into a big lead. Bucks were able to close the gap there, and Celtics just said, hey, we're the better team. We're going to finish this game out, and that's what they did in this one. Tatum had 31. Jaylen Brown went for 21. Derek White had 23, and Porzingis had 17. 19 points off the bench for Peyton Pritchard in this game here, 5 for 8 from downtown. The Celtics shot 18 for 40 from the three in this game here, 29 free throws. They made 24 of them. That's a solid night there at the free throw line. 37 rebounds. The Bucks did out-rebound this Celtics team. That didn't benefit them in any way, shape, or form. Looking at, from the field in this one, the Celtics shot 47%. The Bucks actually shot 53% from the field in this game. They shot 53%. You look at the free throw line, that was the big difference in this one. The Celtics got there, the Bucks didn't. That's what made, that's your 12-point swing right there, just at the free throw line in this game here. That's what led to the loss from the Bucks. So the Bucks dropped this one. They dropped to 44-25 on the year. The Celtics moved to 55-14 on the year. They pushed that to an 11-game lead there in that Eastern Conference race. The Bucks still a game up on the Cleveland Cavaliers after the Cavs did also lose their game last night. They will be in action. The Bucks will be in action next. That'll be coming up, I believe that'll be today here. They're going to be taking on the Brooklyn Nets. That'll be coming back to the Pfizer for that one. So you got the Nets coming back to the Pfizer. You have a 3-game swing here at the Pfizer. You're going to have the Nets, OKC, and then the Lakers coming to Milwaukee there. So a couple of big-time matchups there. The Celtics, or not the Celtics, but the Lakers aren't great. But like we saw when they went to LA, still a problem for this Bucks team. And then looking at OKC, that's a very good team, a very good young team there in OKC. So this is going to be a rough little 3-game stretch here for the Bucks if you don't start it out right here with the Brooklyn Nets coming up tonight here. You got the Nets, and then I believe that next game would be on the 24th. Yes, that next game is going to be on the 24th there for the Bucks taking on OKC. That will be on Sunday. And then after that, they play the Lakers on a Tuesday. So, I mean, you got some days off. You're going to get some days off after that Nets game, which will be good. Get retooled, maybe get Giannis back out there. I don't know what the status of Giannis is going to be against the Nets. I've heard multiple stories that he might have just been that healthy scratch and that he was just a rest game and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. I would hope that he didn't sit out of the Celtics game because they needed him. They definitely did need him, and that could have been a statement game for the Bucks going up against the Celtics, especially in Boston. But I mean, you get Giannis back. You have Middleton's back. I mean, this team, we'll see what they're made of over this upcoming stretch here, because after the Lakers, you go on the road and play the Pelicans there, and that's going to be a tough game too, going on the road to New Orleans for that one. So a couple of big games coming up here for the Bucks over the upcoming week. But out of the Bucks, getting into a little bit of baseball for the day, I mean, did anybody get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the Dodgers game over there in Korea? Because I didn't. I'm going to tell you that. I didn't. I forgot that it was even happening until I was listening to ESPN radio, and they were talking about it at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, what the heck's going on right now? And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. That overseas game, the opening day of baseball. I'm okay. I have a mixed bag of feelings about overseas games. It's the same with football. It's the same with baseball now. Whatever you want to say, it's the same. I get it. You want to make it this worldwide thing, and it is a worldwide thing. I mean, baseball, we saw it at the World Baseball Classic, how big it is everywhere. And basketball, we've seen how many overseas guys are coming into the league now and making a name for themselves. Jokic and Luka Doncic. I mean, you have multiple guys. Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have multiple guys in the NBA. MLB, like I said, tons of guys coming from foreign countries. And then, I mean, you look at even NHL, you're going to get some in there. You're going to have guys in the NFL. I mean, not a lot in the NFL. I'm not going to say a lot, but you're going to have some guys who are coming from overseas and stuff like that. So it's becoming, sports are becoming that worldwide thing, which is fine. I get that. I just don't want to get to a point in sports where we are forgetting about the people back home, right? Because this 5 a.m., I mean, say you're a diehard Dodger fan, right? You're not waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning just to watch the Dodgers. You're not. That's just not, I mean, you're not going to do that. And I get the aspect of you want to make it a worldwide brand. I get that. You have the likes of Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto on that team now. You want the world to be able to see them, and that's just, I mean, that's the way that it is. And I get it. It's a money standpoint. It's all money. End of the day, it's all money. I just don't want to get to the point where we're sitting here and we're saying to ourselves, okay, what about, Jacksonville? You look at Jacksonville Jaguars, tons of games overseas. What about the fans in Jacksonville who actually pay? I mean, you look at paying for taxes, for stadiums, for stadium renovations, everything like that, for ticket fees, for season tickets, whatever it is. I mean, look at these people that are paying for all of this stuff back home, and you're putting these games overseas. Who's going to go to that? I mean, who's going to take a weekend off to go overseas and watch a football game? Not many people. Gonna be honest with you. You might get you're gonna get some stragglers in there from overseas that go to these games. You're gonna get probably a good amount of people in there. I don't have the totals of fans that showed up these games. I would imagine they got a decent amount. But when I just, what worries me is that we're gonna reach a point where the Super Bowl is overseas, where I could never see I don't think the World Series would ever go overseas or anything like that. But hey, what would stop them? What would stop them? I mean, it's a money game. Where can I get the most money? And that's the way sports are going. So that kind of worries me. I mean, and I think it's kind of silly. I'm not a fan of it. I'll be honest with you, not a fan of it. I am perfectly fine with the way that it's been, the way that it has been, the way that it was trending, and now it seems to be trending in the opposite direction. Lots of changes in sports, all over sports, and now we're moving overseas with a bunch of games. So I don't know. That's my opinion on it. I am really interested to see where sports lead to here in the overseas games. But with that, staying in baseball, I was just talking about baseball a little bit there. Staying in baseball, Scott Boras. I mean, this guy, if you don't know who Scott Boras is, he is a agent in the MLB. He's got a clientele list of some higher end names, I guess you could say. Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, some of the bigger names in there, I guess you could say. And JD Martinez, also on that list. And you look at these guys, and I was just looking today. I saw a stat that came up across the board or across social media. And I saw some of Scott Boras' guys and the contracts that they asked for and the contracts that they got, right? So I saw Cody Bellinger. He wanted $200+ million. Ended up signing for a contract of $80 million. Matt Chapman wanted a $150 million contract. He only got 54. Now Blake Snell, as everybody probably saw, signed a couple days ago with the Giants. He wanted a $270 million deal, and he only got 62. He got an offer of 170 million from the Yankees and turned that down. Ended up having to settle for that 62 mil. And it's just, that is a prime example right there of you have an agent who he wants to get you the most that he can get you, right? But sometimes that's a little bit excessive. That's a little bit too much. And that's what we saw in Scott Boras' case. That's what we saw in Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, and Blake Snell. MLB team said, hey, I see what you want. I'll give you this. I see you want this many years, this many million. I'm going to give you this, and you can take it or you can leave it. Yankees told him to leave it. They offered them 170 mil. He turned them down. I didn't hear anything after that. All of a sudden, he signs with the Giants here real late in the season, or real late in spring training, for only 62 million. I believe that's across 2 years. I mean, I think it's hats off to MLB owners. They finally said, enough's enough. We're not going to keep paying these silly prices here for guys who, I mean, you look at Matt Chapman's case, very good third baseman defensively. I think he's a good defensive third baseman. His hitting has been iffy as of late. Blake Snell, injury prone. He's got some Cy Youngs in there, but other than that, I mean, he's not like he's Shohei Ohtani 2.0. It's not like he was pitching better than Corbin Burns was in his Cy Young year. Like, Blake Snell is a solid pitcher, but the numbers there, you want 270 mil as an injury-prone pitcher. Who's going to pay that? I mean, that's crazy amount to pay for a pitcher over a multiple years where you can lose that guy, and now you're stuck with a contract. Cody Bellinger struggled with the Dodgers, had a good year, and I'm not going to say he didn't have a good year with the Cubs. He had a good year, and he had a bounce-back year. But what tells you that that's going to transpire into the next one, right? You don't know. Nobody knows that answer. So teams weren't going to just all of a sudden say, this guy's worth over $200 million. Let's jump on him. Nobody did. Now he got a contract of $80 million. That's quite the bump there. $120 million less than what he was asking. Hats off. I got to say, hats off to MLB owners finally putting a foot down and saying, we're not going to deal with this. If you want to hold out, stay there. Stay holding out. That'll be fine. Jordan Montgomery hasn't signed yet. That's okay. MLB owners don't care, because the closer and closer we get to opening day or even into the season here, that contract's going to get smaller. That contract's going to get way smaller. The years are going to get smaller. You might see, like we saw Blake Snell, a guy who wanted 270 and he got 62 mil, because we're only, I believe, eight games away from opening day. It's fantastic. I really do think it's fantastic. I love to see owners just kind of say no. Say no to the whole thing, to spending all that money on guys who, I mean, if you ask me, I believe sometimes or lots of times players get paid way too much for what they do. And this is one of those instances where owners said, yeah, you're not worth that amount of dollars. We'll give you this, but that's about it. And now we see what's happening. So I just thought that was interesting to see some of the guys who Scott Boras had as clients and to see where they are at now, because the contracts have certainly taken a hit underneath the Scott Boras's tutelage there. So with that, I want to get to a couple of our sponsors here before I move on here. First, your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty. Call Peggy, Sue, or Anna to find your dream home, or if you're looking to sell, find them on Facebook at your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty, or stop in and see them at their location in Marshfield. Also, Sports Scene, Sports Cards, and Memorabilia. Stop in there in the Marshfield Mall and see Al. He can get you any of your sporting cards, memorabilia, jerseys, anything you need down there at Sports Scene in Marshfield, located in the Marshfield Mall. Also, Pittsville Farm and Home Center. At the store, they serve you anything from hydraulic hoses to red roses. Stop in and see the awesome crew at Pittsville Farm and Home Center in Pittsville, Wisconsin. But with that, staying in the MLB, I gave my roster prediction yesterday, my starting roster for the Brewers, position-wise. I want to give my starting pitchers now. We know Freddie Peralta. He's tabbed, opening day guy, going up against Mets. We know that one already. So Freddie is my ace. He's my number one, right? Number two in my rotation, I have DL Hall. Young guy, coming over from the Orioles. Nobody knew if he'd be a starter, if he'd be a bullpen guy. I'm pretty darn sure he's a starter, and he's slotted in there right now behind Freddie this week. So I believe DL Hall will have the second game of the year there going up against the Mets. And then I have Colin Ray. He's right behind DL Hall in the starter, in the rotation, as you would think, this week here in spring yet. So I believe Colin Ray will be that third starter for the Brewers there against the Mets. Number 4, I got Wade Miley. I think Wade Miley, if he does, it sounds like he's going to check out and be able to start opening day or be on the roster for opening day. So I believe Wade Miley will slot in there at that 4 spot. The number 5 spot is where I still have my question mark. I think it's going to be between Joe Ross and Jacob Junis. And I don't know who's going to win that one out yet. Both have pitched okay in spring so far. Nothing crazy, but solid number 5s in the rotation. I think either one of them might take that spot. And depending on where the Brewers are at, maybe you could see a 6-man rotation on the Brewers. I could see Aaron Ashby too. I could see Ashby sliding into a slot there for the Brewers here. It's going to be a big question. I think we kind of know the top 4 in the rotation. Now, are we happy with it? Probably not. You'd rather have Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, and Freddie Peralta, right? But I think right now we know who is the top 4 in the rotation. I think those are the solid 4 right now. And then the number 5 is the spot I have a question mark about right now. And I could see it being anywhere from Joe Ross to Jacob Junis. I think those 2 are going to be the big ones, but also Aaron Ashby might be in that slot too. We've seen the velocity. The velocity has gone up a little bit for Ashby. The breaking stuff's got movement. Maybe they slot him in there, see what happens, and then maybe Jacob Junis or Joe Ross comes in that spot. Maybe the Brewers give Ashby the shot, and if he falters, maybe they bring up a rookie, right? Robert Gasser. You're going to have guys like Mizorowski. I'm not sure about Carlos Rodriguez. He's a good prospect pitcher for the Brewers. I don't know if he'll be ready this year yet, but you never know. And then you also have guys, you have other guys down there in the minor league system or long relief guys that you could give shots in that role. I mean, Jansen Junk has always been that movable piece. Jansen Junk hasn't pitched well for the Brewers yet, but maybe he finds lightning in a bottle. Maybe it is. Maybe it's this year. It seems like the Brewers know how to fix starting pitchers. They know how to fix them. They did it with Burns. Maybe Ashby is the next case right there where the Brewers figure him out because he's got good stuff. I mean, this guy's got fantastic stuff. It's just a matter of can he control it and can he put it out there on the baseball field for 5-6 innings a night That's the big question mark with Aaron Ashby. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Aaron Ashby fits into the fold here for the Brewers moving forward here. But I want to get out of the Brewers, get out of baseball. I know we're getting closer and closer to opening day. We're going to get more into it here next week as we get close to that opening day start there for the Brewers. But I saw, coming out of last night, I didn't talk about it here on the show yesterday, but there was a blowout. Virginia was blown out by Colorado State. And, it led to a lot of people all over social media making fun of Virginia, saying that, calling for, I heard a lot of people calling for Tony Bennett to be fired out there at Virginia. I've seen it all. I saw it all. And yes, if you look at that game standpoint, offensively, Virginia was terrible. 14 points in the first half, 14 points. And then I believe they went almost 9 minutes without scoring. At one point, they hadn't scored in almost 45, almost 50 minutes of actual real time. That's ridiculous. We've seen some games where the Badgers go into scoring droughts and we go nuts, but that was ridiculous. But what I got to, I was looking for ways because I heard people talking about it and I didn't 100% agree. I didn't. Everybody's saying how Tony Bennett's style is out of whack. It's not working anymore. This and that. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Virginia's slow-paced offense isn't it anymore. That's not what people expect. But defensively, this team still played well. Colorado State played well defensively, as you can see. But Virginia, you look at their team right now. Beekman, McNeely, those are about the only guys on that team that could shoot. Those are about the only guys on that team that scored in that game yesterday there, going up against Colorado State. Do I believe that Tony Bennett's a bad coach? No. I believe this guy knows more about the game of basketball than a lot of coaches do in the league. This is a been there, done that guy. We're talking son of Dick Bennett. This guy, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. You can see the frustration of him on the sidelines there. And a lot of it that goes into Virginia is guys that fit the fold, right? Guys who fit the system of what Tony Bennett, what this team wants to realistically do at the end of the day. And that's slow, grind, run you down, defense, scoring late in the shot clocks. Boring basketball, if you ask a lot of people. To me, it's not boring basketball. I'm all gung-ho about watching defensive battles. To me, those games are fun. To me, those games are fun to watch, is some defensive battles. I'm okay with the low-scoring game. But there's a lot of people out there who aren't. I don't think Tony Bennett's style of coaching the game of basketball is bad. Yeah, I was just looking up the stats last night. McNeely is one of the only other shooters on Virginia's team. He was 2 for 13 from the floor in that game. So you want to know why you lost? 2 for 13 from the floor. He was 2 for 6 from downtown. He had 2 threes on the game. That was it. You want to know why you struggle in a game? That's a big reason. That is a huge reason right there. And you look at Colorado State, they had multiple guys in double figures, or 3 guys in double figures in this game. Scott went for 23, Carter went for 12, and Clifford went for 17. Actually, one of their better players, and a player that I have listed as one of my players to watch in this tournament, Isaiah Stevens, actually only had 5 points in that game in 35 minutes of action. So interesting to see one of the better players at Colorado State kind of go cold last night. He's a 48% shooter from the floor. He's averaging about 4 threes a game, 44% from downtown. This guy's a 16.2 points per game kind of guy. So that's interesting to see Isaiah Stevens in a game like that. Didn't play great for Colorado State. Didn't shoot a lot. Didn't have a lot of opportunity to shoot because they were just basically blowing Virginia out of the water. Even though it didn't seem like a blowout at times, Virginia only had 14 points. It looked like it was never going to end for Virginia. But to get back to what I was saying there with Tony Bennett, was this guy is still a great coach. He is. He's a great coach. But you look at the recruiting of what Virginia has. And could you blame it on his recruiting then? Could you blame it on the last couple of years of recruiting? That's a possibility. I mean, you could blame it on recruiting for this guy. You could also say, okay, he's got project players yet, right? Buchanan, a freshman, very good shot blocker. 6'11", this guy is 225. He can get all over you, but he's an offensive project, right? He's a freshman. You're still working on him. You look at other players on this team. Some of the starters out there, like Minor. This guy is a senior, and he's giving you about 4 points per game right now. You got a guy like Ryan Dunn, who averages about 8 a game. He's a sophomore, still a project with him. And then you have Tane Murray, 3 points a game. I don't believe, you look at this roster for Virginia, and I mean, end of the day, they're still, I don't want to say young, because they do have guys on this team who are a little bit experienced, older, whatever you want to say. But some of the better players, Leon Bond, he's from Wisconsin. He's a freshman coming in this year. He's from Wauwatosa. He's a freshman. You look at even guys like Gertrude. He's a freshman for him. A lot of freshmen on Tony Bennett's team. And Tony Bennett's a guy who it's going to take 4 years. You're building guys up throughout the program. Right now, he's got a boatload of. You look at McNeely. He's a sophomore. He's just a sophomore. You had 2 seniors in that starting rotation with Beekman and Minor. Outside of that, you're a relatively young team yet, sophomore, freshman. You still have guys who you're trying to develop. These aren't your Duke prospects who are going to the NBA the next year, right? These are young guys. These are young players. And I believe, Leon Bond went to Virginia. I wanted him to come to Madison. We saw him early on this year as Badger fans, and Bond had a very good game against the Badgers. This is a guy who can score it, but he's young yet. And he's coming off the bench for this team. He actually only had 3 minutes in this game. Not a lot of playing time for him yet. I don't believe Tony Bennett's way of coaching is dead. I don't believe that he should be fired out there at Virginia. I believe this is a Virginia team that's young, and they got to build it from the ground up again. The transfer portal doesn't help Virginia because guys are going to leave. If they don't feel like they can be utilized in the system anymore, they're going to leave. Now, could you blame that on recruiting by Tony Bennett in the transfer portal and in the recruiting trail, why he doesn't have older guys on this team that are ready to step in? You could blame it on that. You could definitely do that. I just don't think you can blame it on the coaching style that he has, because I don't think the coaching style of Virginia is that. We watched it in 2019. They won the national championship. Nothing has changed, but back then they had really good shooters. Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome. They had DeAndre Hunter on that team. You had K.A. Clark was on that team, a good point guard. He wasn't a fantastic point guard. He wasn't an over-top guy, but he was a guy who could facilitate the basketball for him. Diakite was also on that team, a very good big man for Virginia. This team had a lot of good players. I believe Salt was on that team yet. They had a very good team put together there, and they were older. Now that team is gone, and they're still trying to regroup. Basically regroup from that team yet, right? And over the last couple of years, we've watched this team falter in first-round games. Why? They don't have the scorers like they did in 2019. The only way Virginia can come back the way that they play the game of basketball is to have guys who can shoot it, because they can hold teams, right? They play that slow tempo. They can hold teams down. Everybody talked about how Virginia only had 14 points in the first half. If you look at the grand scheme of things and the way that basketball is played these days, Colorado State, I believe at the half only had 27 or 20. I believe they only had 27 points at the half there. 27-14 at the half. Now, I get it. Yeah, 27 is looking better than 14, 110%. But you look at college basketball as a whole these days, 27 is low. That's a low scoring. So you can't tell me that the defense wasn't there. People are telling, I saw a lot of things saying that they just all around suck. No. The defense is fine for Virginia. Nobody can hold you to the defense. The offense was atrocious. I just don't believe that you can just fully say Tony Bennett should be done at Virginia. I think this guy's got a couple more years to prove it. And if he can't do it then, I don't know how you fire him. But you could come to a mutual terms to walk away from each other, but I don't think you can fire Tony Bennett. I really don't think you can fire him if you are the Virginia Cavaliers. So I just want to touch on that. Tony Bennett, he's a Wisconsin guy, right? Dick Bennett was here. Tony Bennett's at Virginia now, but I just wanted to touch on it a little bit there and just talk about what my thoughts were about that Virginia game. Because yes, it was bad, 100%. That team offensively stunk this year. I mean, they were basically the Iowa football of basketball this year. This team offensively was terrible. I think they have good players on this team. I really do. Virginia's got a lot of good young players. I think they just got to develop. And I think once they develop, I think this team will be, I don't think they're going to be fantastic. I don't think they're going to be great, but I think they're going to be a good team again. And I think it's just going to be, is it going to be next year? Is it going to be the year after? You have some sophomores and freshmen in there, like McNeely and like I was talking about before, the Bond there, and Buchanan. Very good big man there, 6'11", shot blocker. This guy gets all over you, but he's got a lot of work to do on the offensive end. So it's going to be interesting to see how Virginia handles this in the offseason after a lot of struggle here in postseason play, especially since that 2019. Because you look a year before that, they lost to a 16 seed. Then they come back 2021, and I believe that's the game they got bounced by a lower seed there. I believe that one of the years was the Furman game that they lost. So you've had years now of struggles. How do you come back from that if you are Tony Bennett? I think that's going to be a big thing leading into the offseason here for Virginia is where do they add pieces? And I think we know where they got to add pieces in the scoring department, right? But is bringing in a scorer in the transfer portal, can you find one that's going to fit the fold of Virginia the way that they play the game of basketball under Tony Bennett? That's going to be the interesting thing to see is how Tony Bennett plays it in the transfer portal heading into this offseason. So with that, I want to talk about a couple of our sponsors quick before we move on here. First, Game Day Supply in Onalaska. Do you have a sports club or team? Are you looking for some sweet custom uniforms or apparel? Check out the awesome crew at Game Day Supply in Onalaska to help your team get the sweetest gear. Find them on Facebook at Game Day Supply or online at GameDaySupply.net. Also, Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood. Stop in there at NC Chad at Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood. He will get you right, whether you got hurt at work, on the field, on the court, wherever it was, he'll get you right. He'll get you back to work, back on the field, back on the court, wherever it is. Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood, Wisconsin. And also Marshfield Motors Speedway. Great racing and family fun just outside Marshfield. They're located just outside Marshfield, 3 miles west on County Road H. Stop in there for some fantastic summer days and nights at the racetrack. Stop in there for some great family fun down there. So with that, getting out of Virginia, I wanted to get to the Badgers here before we wrap it up. We got lots to talk about with Badgers tomorrow here on the preview show for the game coming up. But I want to talk about a question that I had today. And I asked people around, I said, how confident are you? Because there's a lot of people who are taking the James Madison over Wisconsin upset. And I mean, rightfully so. 12-5s, they happen all the time. I got to tell you, in my bracket, we went through it yesterday there, but I had every 12-5 upset except for Wisconsin. I picked Wisconsin. So 12-5 upsets, they happen all the time. We know it. We've watched enough March Madness to know it. James Madison, 30-3 on the year, 31-3, whatever they are on the year. This is a good team in James Madison. But I'm confident. I want to know how confident was the rest of the group out there. So I asked it out there. Got a lot of responses. One guy says not super confident, but if the Badgers are focused and on their A game, then they should win pretty easily. I agree with that. If they're on their A game, they will be right in there. Another guy came out, he said this will be a high-scoring, close game. Badgers are the favorite. It all depends on what Badger team shows up. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Badgers got to show up in this game. They got to be all over the place. We had another person come out and say, who the heck is James Madison? Do they play teams like Purdue or Illinois? Just saying, go Bucky. Okay. Go Bucky. James Madison doesn't play anybody. They played Michigan State. I'll give you they did play Michigan State and beat them early on at the Breslin Center. Other than that, who did they play? That's a good question. Nobody. They didn't play anybody good. Neither did FDU before they beat Purdue. But either way, enough about that. A couple more here. Right here, this is a big one. Let's go. We need to bring our A game on the defensive side. We can't go 7 minutes without scoring. Hit our threes. We win. Go Badgers. Yeah, I agree with that. You can't have the scoring droughts. The Badgers love to play those games where they go through like a 3-4 minute scoring drought. You can't have that. Not March. This is a time of year where you can afford maybe a 1 to maybe 2 minute scoring drought as long as your defense is fantastic. But Badgers defense has struggled this year. So scoring droughts will not help whatsoever. Another guy said, well, I don't know how good James Madison is, but 31-3 for a reason, just so Wisconsin can keep up with their speed. If that's the reason, they're 31-3. That one confused me. That one did confuse me, but I'm with you. They're fast. Wisconsin's got to keep up with the speed. I'm going to just dig around in there and find what I thought was happening. We had a lady come in and she said, this team's inconsistency over the season has people wondering. It depends on which team shows up. That's the big thing, right? We saw the first half of the year, this team was rolling. The offensive efficiency was crazy. And then we saw the second half. The loss to Michigan. The butt kicking the Rutgers gave us. We had multiple losses tallied up in there. Purdue, Illinois beat us. Nebraska. Lots of, not bad. There couple bad losses, right? But not the rest of them weren't terrible. But it's 100% agreed because we saw a different team come out in the Big Ten tournament right away, right? Hitting shots, playing decent defense. The ball was moving. That's got to carry over into this NCAA tournament. Another guy said gives the media something to talk about. Yeah, it keeps business, right? It keeps everybody in business out there. You gotta stir the pot. You gotta talk about upsets. Upsets happen in March. We gotta be talking about them, right? Another one said, not sure things in March Madness. Remember, Purdue lost in the first round last year as the number 1 seed. If the Badgers play like they did last week, they should move on to the second round. I agree, 100%. If they play. You give me the games that you played against. If you play like you did against Purdue, I'm going to go as far as I would say this Duke's team, also Duke, James Madison, and then Duke. You play the game that you played against Purdue, or even before that with Northwestern or heck Maryland. If you play the game like against Maryland, you're gonna blast your way to the Elite Eight and have a date with Marquette. But if you play that way that you did in that Big Ten tournament, I can see this Badger team giving even a team like Houston a run for their money. I got to be honest with you. Houston's a good team. They have good guard play, but they're a beatable team, 100% a beatable team. And that's cliche. Every team's beatable, right? You can't say just because, that they're going to be a beatable team. No. Like if I were to take the Badgers and play UConn, right? I tell you that's a bad matchup for Wisconsin. Wisconsin versus North Carolina right now, I would say that's a bad matchup for Wisconsin just because of the way Armando Bacot plays. And then I look at the way UConn plays with Klingon down there in the post. They have a lot of scorers in UConn. I don't think the Badgers match up well in those games, but I think in a game against Houston, they're athletic, but you control the tempo, you control the offensive glass. I think that's a game the Badgers could, if they're playing like they did in the Big Ten tournament, that's a game the Badgers can be in. I'm going to be honest with you. They can play with a team like that. So, 100%. All these comments saying that the Badgers playing like they did last week, that is a scary team as a 5 seed in Wisconsin. If they play anywhere, if they play in the same realm as they did last week, that's a scary team there in Wisconsin. Just looking through the comments here. We had another lady come in. She said, I don't think it will be a blowout necessarily, but I think they can beat James Madison. I don't think so either. I don't think this game, there's a couple other comments in here, 15 plus, 10 plus. I don't think, it might end up as 10. It might end up as 12. But if Wisconsin wins this game, I think it's going to be a close one. I really do. I think it's going to be decided late in the game on the free throw line. And it's going to be, can the Badgers knock down threes late? That's going to be a big question for me. Does this Badgers team knock down big free throws? That's going to be a big key for me. Looking at a couple more comments here. We had a guy come in, look at strength of schedule, and realize that Bucky is not going to be overconfident after the February debacle. And the Badgers' size inside will control the game. 100%. I talked about it early on this week when I was looking at this James Madison matchup. This team's biggest guy, the majority that they use, is a 6'8 guy. He's 6'8. I mean, Stephen Crowell, Tyler Wall, you can stretch it as far as Nolan Winter. They got to have big games for the Badgers. I mean, I would say it's not just against an undersized team. At some point, you will have to play, if you're going to go far, you will have to play a team with a good big, right? A good big man. And Stephen Crowell is going to have to play aggressive, and he's going to have to be productive. You can't have games where your big man is just completely a non-factor throughout a stretch, right? We've watched it all season. I mean, I've talked about it. When Stephen Crowell plays well, the Badgers play well. And when Stephen Crowell is just having one of those nights where he's only scoring 4 points, relatively, the Badgers lose. Unless if the Badgers go completely off from downtown, it needs to work inside out. This James Madison team is a very good team at defending the three. They have very athletic, tough guards, and they hold teams to under 30% from three. They're one of the best teams in the country, opponent 3-point percentage. So this is a team in James Madison where you got to beat them on the inside first. And I think the Badgers have the capability, but they have to do it in this one. See if there's any other interesting ones through here. Not seeing a lot of crazy ones. Some guy just said, "Did you see the Big Ten tournament?" Yeah, I saw the Big Ten tournament. We all saw the Big Ten tournament. We also saw the 11 games before that. So to tell me that did you see the Big Ten tournament? Yeah, I saw the game. I saw Nebraska when they played at Nebraska, where they had a 19-point lead heading into the half. And that game was a tale of the entire year for the Badgers. You want to look at a game and see how the Badgers have played all season long? Look at the Nebraska game. First half, you're up 19. Shots are falling. Everything's fantastic. Second half, Nebraska rolls you. So nobody can tell me that you just have to look at the Big Ten tournament, because I've looked at it. I've looked at this whole season, and I can say with a lot of people, what Badger team's going to show up? And I'm optimistic, right? I'm hoping for the Badger team that you're talking about, the one in the Big Ten tournament, the one early on this year. That's the Badger team I'm hoping that shows up to this tournament, because then they are this is a tough team. This is a tough team to beat. But if you get the opposite, this will be a rough first game. And if they make it out of there, I think it's by the skin of their teeth. I really do. It's going to be a rough one if they play anywhere near what they did at the end of the year. That's what I got to say to that. And last but not least, we had a guy come in. He said, as long as they feed the post and don't settle for 3-point shots, they should be good. JMU has a good record, but only one top 100 win in MSU. But we've seen the Badgers lose to an awful Michigan team. I'm giving them a 75% chance. I can work with 75, right? We can work with 75. I can work with 85. I'm going to give the Badgers a 90% chance. I'll give them a 90, right? 10%. 10% to play with. I'm going to give them a 90% chance that they win against James Madison. I'm going to give them, if they beat James Madison, I'm giving them 95% chance to beat Duke, right? Got to beat Duke. But I got to be honest with you. I have the Vermont-Duke upset. So they got to beat Vermont if they make it out of the first game. Can't lose to Vermont if you beat JMU. But with that, that's about all I got. Not a lot happening in the world of sports right now. We're waiting for March Madness to tip off. Nothing really happening with the Packers, Brewers, for opening days next week. So we're getting closer to that, but not a lot happening otherwise. So we had a lot of random talk today, but hey, that's okay. It's fun when you get to talk sports, right? But with that, March Madness starts today, folks. It's going to start early. If you don't have it, get the March Madness app. That helps you be able to watch a lot of these games. Otherwise, tune on your TV, right? You got to be watching there. I'm going to have multiple TVs going at the same time. I got to be watching all the games at once. Got to be keeping up there. And then all weekend long, it's going to be craziness. craziness across the way there. If you're bored, flip the channel, you'll find another basketball game, right? That's the great part about it. That's the great part about the madness, is that it's going to be crazy game after crazy game, and we can't wait to get it started here. So with that, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. But until then, deuces.
Yeah, oh my Lord, watch me sway. Darkness falls and we all pray, hoping for the light of day. Down to the river I have held the devil's hand, felt the weight of my own sin.